have a duel off. This will be
All right.
Hey everyone, welcome to Rock Book Show. Look who's back in the magic box. It's Mike, McBeardo, McPadden.
Hey everybody, that's me.
That is you. And look at this amazing tome you have assembled here.
Don't drop it on your foot.
Yeah, seriously. But it is that time of year when it makes a great beach blanket weight. So it's
Perfect,
completely
yes.
practical.
Buy one for each blanket.
Right, because you're probably going to make friends anyway, and then you're all going to want a copy. So,
Exactly.
you know, Mike, what I love about this book, beyond the obvious, is that I love a good book that can be turned into a drinking game and or cause fistfights.
Yeah. Well, that's been my object in everything I do in life. Turn my activities into a drinking game. The fist fights just happen.
Yeah, right. It's just a happy byproduct of what... You know, when I got my copy too, it opened to foxes. What a great movie.
Oh, with Angel, yes, yeah.
Oh, so good.
Yeah.
There's so much goodness in here, but did your marriage go on the brink at all?
Oh, yeah, please. You don't see her around here, do you? Yeah.
I see there's no pictures. No.
Yeah, no, it was, no, Rachel McPadden, who was the wife of Mike McPadden, was a terrific partner and incredibly patient and incredibly helpful. Helped me all the way with finding stuff, you know, just reading things for me. You know, she read everything first before I put it in the hopper. And now she's sewing a battle vest for me that will premiere Saturday. So
nice.
Stay tuned, yes. A
very nice accompaniment to the artisanal barf bags.
Yes, yeah.
That you got on pre-order.
Yeah. They're on the way. They're on the way. Yeah.
Oh, thank God. So how did you pare this down? It had to be impossible.
It was very, yeah. It was impossible is a good word. It was. It came down to we wanted the 666 number as a gimmick. I'm a big fan of gimmicks, ballyhoo and what have you. Going back to my fandom of grindhouse movies and exploitation and things like that, and the carnival. So I hit 666, and I was like, all right, I'm about halfway there through the movies that must be in the book. So I just kept writing, and Ian Christie, who is the honcho at Bazillion Points, just let me keep writing. And we ended up with about 1,400 reviews and about 800, exactly 850 are in the book. I just counted them last week. So there's a volume 2 percolating out there. So buy a lot of these. So keep number 2 out there.
And how long did it take from beginning to end?
3.5 years.
God, that amazes me that you authors can spend that much time with material.
And it was, I mean, literally, Kimberly, every day.
Wow.
Every day I was working on it. So, and I mean, it was fun. I would have done some version of this anyway, in terms of just looking for stuff on the internet and watching goofy videos and thinking of jokes. But then I had something to do. I had a place to put those jokes. So
right, exactly. But you're just like, do you look back and go, how did I even think I could do this by myself? I mean, yeah, you had Rachel, but
there was a moment where I was about 6 months in, and I was working rather feverishly. Now, I also, as a side note, the last time I was on your show was to promote If You Like Metallica. So I pumped out If You Like Metallica while I was writing this book simultaneously. So, and that took, I don't know, 4 or 5 months. So about 6 months into this project, I was like, all right, I got to be about halfway through now. I must be at like 333 movies. And so I tallied them up because I had just been writing willy-nilly. And I was at like 102. And then I started to sweat blood and run around. What have I done? Oh, my God. And so that's when it became overwhelming. And I wish I had gone another route in terms of like having a team of people, even though I had a lot of people that helped me and a lot of people sent me stuff and things like that. But it came down to me just pumping through this. I
also enjoy the Leonard Maltin reminisce because I too had so many of those books and always loved when I got to a bomb.
It was, I mean, like the ultimate Easter egg for me. And I just went through and I would just circle bomb, bomb, bomb. And I can tell you the first one I ever stayed up and watched was called Fire Maidens from Outer Space from, I think, 1953. I wasn't disappointed either. I was 8 years old. So yeah, I would circle the bombs and then go to the I didn't use TV Guide so much as the TV Week supplement of the Daily News because it was easier laid out. And I would circle when the Bomb movies were going to be on.
Oh, it's so awesome. And growing up where you did in Brooklyn and, you know, being access to the city and stuff, you were able to see a lot of these movies on a big screen, which is so cool.
Yeah, I started going to high school in 1982 in Manhattan, and I was on 16th Street and 6th Avenue at the High School of St. Francis Xavier, a fine Jesuit military institution. And 42nd Street was 2 stops on the F train away. So I would just head up there after class by myself, and it was a crazy time. I mean, you know, I think you have kids, right? And you live in New York. Can you imagine just saying to your 13-year-old, get on the subway at 6 in the morning, ride it for an hour and a half, come home on the subway when you're ready to come home? That was how we were raised back then. So, you know, I would sneak off by myself. And I think back now, and perhaps I had some kind of insane death wish, because these were very dangerous places.
And I love some of your subgenres in the book as well, because I'm really not that familiar with Italian horror. What are some of the highlights of Italian horror?
Well, I mean, you have like all these kind of brand name directors, Dario Argento and Lucio Fulci, and the movies are a mixture of genius and insanity and idiocy, and it blends together into this poetry of violence and just gut bucket disgustingness. But it does achieve this often. It achieves this weird lyricism. There's a Fulci movie called The Beyond that, and this is the thing, they make no sense. You have to just enjoy them as poetry. Suspiria is my favorite, which you may have heard of. That's Dario Argento's probably his best known film. It's about Jessica Harper is an American girl who goes to ballet school in Italy, but it's actually an academy for witches. And the walls bleed blood and heads come off, and it has a great, incredible, and Argento and George Romero often worked with a great Italian prog rock band called Goblin, who are very metal, I'll say metal adjacent. They're very close to metal. And the soundtrack to Suspiria is one of the weirdest, scariest, loudest things you can enjoy on your own. That's like just having a movie play in your head when you listen to that.
Awesome. And let us not forget Nuns.
Oh, yes. Nunsploitation. There she is. Sister of the leather gloves, yeah. It's funny because there's a lot of nuns. That was the other thing that Italy went a little wild with, and Spain in particular. Like the 2 most Catholic countries on earth decided that nuns and pornography would go hand in hand. Softcore, usually. And there's one masterpiece among them, which is Ken Russell's The Devils. So it's this high art film that sort of unleashed, and that's about the Devils of Loudun. I'm not pronouncing the French right. It's about a true incident where during the various inquisitions in Europe, a bunch of nuns allegedly had gone insane and were living nude in an insane asylum, and the inquisitors came by and all kinds of inquisition went down. So that's a great, great film with Oliver Reed, and that was a worldwide hit. And so that just was like, okay, this is the thing. The Italians, well, they'd see a hit and they jump on and make 1,000 ripoffs, and often achieve their own greatness in the cheapness, craziness, desperation of that. So that was, and often they were like these art films. There's another one called The Night Porter, which is a very well-regarded film about a woman who survives a concentration camp and then later seduces and plays kinky sex games with one of her captors. So that kicked off the Nazi-sploitation genre throughout Europe, culminating here in America with Ilsa She-Wolf of the SS.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I guess I got to ask you the obvious question, too. What is the criteria for heavy metal? Because heavy metal in itself is open to discussion.
Right. Well, for me, I mean, it comes down to knowing it when you see it. And the way I see it is like, you can look at a Chihuahua and you look at a Great Dane, and somehow you know those are both dogs. And you can listen to, Judas Priest and Poison and the Melvins and Slipknot, and somehow you know they're all heavy metal. So the idea with the book was you'd have these obvious genres. So movies about metal, which is like Spinal Tap, Airheads, then documentaries like Anvil and Decline of Western Civilization, Part 2. the metal years. And then concert films, Song Remains the Same. So that's all real, the obvious stuff. And then movies with heavy metal characters. So you have Wayne's World, the Bill and Ted movies, and movies with, heavy duty, heavy metal soundtracks. So Dazed and Confused. So then you get to the conceptual stuff, which is like, how do I identify the gene that makes a movie heavy metal? And there's also a lot of, going back to the birth of heavy metal, Black Sabbath was a heavy blues band called Earth until they looked across the street once and saw the movie Black Sabbath playing, which is a 1963 horror anthology with Boris Karloff. And people were lined up and they said, well, wow, that's really effective. What if we made scary music? Do you think people would line up for that? So they took the name Black Sabbath. So it's tied in metal and movies from that point on. And then Iron Maiden, I swear, has like 36 songs that are about their favorite movies. So there's that. There's the name check too. But back to the conceptual stuff, like identifying the Chihuahua and the Great Dane. So you look at Conan the Barbarian or the Road Warrior or Blade Runner, and you say something about this is heavy metal. And clearly, the imagery of sword and sorcery, barbarianism, things like that, that's shot through metal, from the beginning. The album covers, the lyrics, the imagery, the attitude, Man-O-War's costumes, their loincloths, and then the post-nuke stuff, post-nuke and apocalypse, which is just sort of neo-barbarianism. So all that works into this is metal somehow. And in the book, I try to explain what that is, as well as genres like the extreme Italian gore of the 80s, 80s slasher films. 80s was a big decade for all this. And I always say, like, metal was born in 1970 with the first Black Sabbath record. And so it was going through its teen years in the 80s. And so that's why there was this explosion of all this stuff simultaneously. And then there's just stuff like kids like me. I was born in 68, so I predated a little, but, that were watching Headbangers Ball and then throwing on, 3 Freddy Krueger movies in a row. And, so that's got to be in there because it's so culturally enmeshed. Mm-hmm. So that was a long answer.
No, but a well thoughtful one, Professor McPadden. I liked it. And, of course, we can all bring it back to Alice Cooper as well.
Ah, yes. Yeah, we're not touting enough that there is an exclusive Alice Cooper interview.
Amazing. Oh, look how easily your copy opened to that.
Well, I knew where it was because we're not touting it enough. But it's really cool. He's great. Have you talked to Catherine Turman?
Yes, I have.
Is she not the best? She is the greatest.
So awesome.
I worked with her in California 20 years ago when she worked at Rip Magazine. And now she's the producer of Nights with Alice Cooper. And she set up an interview, and I called Alice. And as, everybody says, it's the same story. He is the greatest. The friendliest, most open, funny, interested, and interesting guy. So I said, well, here it is, Alice. I'm just going to say it quick. Oh, by the way, these, my hands, are these showing up here? Okay, there we go. So, yeah, I have the eyes of Alice Cooper tattooed on my hands. And the meat and loaf of meatloaf on my knuckles. So that show up. Anyway. Yes, the eyes of Alice Cooper. So I said, Alice, I love you. Your eyes are on my hands. Let's talk. So I just shot like 10 or 12 movie titles at him and let him talk. And that's what's in the book. And there's great stuff. And he talked at length about the 2 least metal movies that I was most interested in were Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band.
That was incredible.
Which is one of Hollywood's great, most legendary disasters.
I saw it on a big screen.
That I'm very jealous of. And Sextet, which is a bizarre midnight movie from 1978. It was Mae West's last film. She was 84 years old. And she plays a parody of herself as this aging starlet who has 6 husbands, and they all play into this very weird story. And she's like being Mae West. She's like all sexy. She's like, oh, she's like, I'm the girl who works for Paramount all day and Fox all night. And it's this 84-year-old woman. So Alice is in that at the end. he plays a bellboy. He has a short hair wig on. He walks in and he sings this amazing disco song on the piano. And then he's walking out, and Dom DeLuise walks by and goes, "Oh, hi, Alice." So it's really hilarious. And so he has a very funny story about being in Sextet with Keith Moon and Ringo Starr, who are also in the movie with him. So you have to buy the book to read it, though.
You do have to buy the book to read it. Hey, Mike, before we go, what is it about werewolves? Why can't they just get the hype of vampires or zombies? Will they ever get there?
This is a very interesting question. I suppose, you know, it's a specific type that would romanticize a werewolf, and it's just not as many as the zombie thing. To me, I have a lot of theories on it. If you read my angry review of Zombieland, you'll get about 10,000 words of that. Zombies to me have become cute because they're harmless ultimately. The vampire thing is all tied in with, I think, you know, adolescent sexuality, as is the werewolf. I mean, the hairy palms, for God's sake. But maybe that's what it is. Maybe that's the embarrassing side of teenage sexuality, is sprouting hair, having your hormones rage uncontrollably. There's the answer. We cracked it. Thank you.
There it is. I knew if I asked you, I would get the answer. And do you want to talk about trauma at all?
Yeah, I'm not a fan. I mean, if something comes across in this book, I'm not a fan of trauma. I'm not a fan of Mystery Science Theater 3000 or any other version of that, because I love these movies. And, you know, I wish they'd make fun of crap like, you know, Wes Anderson's Adorable Fests and things like that. But, you know, I love these films, so I'm not into snarking on them. And trauma, like, at least I will admit that the Mystery Science guys are witty. They're funny men. I always said that show would be good if you could hit a button and turn the 3 a-holes off at the bottom of the screen. But trauma is, you know, they make crap and then go, "Aren't we cute? We made crap." And it's dishonest. What was great about the movies in the 70s and the 80s prior to trauma was that this was the best effort these guys could do. And oftentimes it was so terrible it was a great fun to watch. And oftentimes it was so desperate that it was just accidentally great. Trauma is always like, "It's gross. We went too far this time." And it's like, oh, go screw.
Do you have faith in the future of horror movies?
Yeah, I mean, you never know. You never know because, you know, we're not in a great Hollywood period for horror. But last decade, like 2006, 7, 8, France put out this incredible explosion of terrifying, disgusting, thought-provoking horror films. One of which is Martyrs, which is a very difficult film to watch, and about metaphysics and spirituality. And another one called Inside, which is the closest any movie has come to making me throw up. I had hot puke right here. It was right here as I was watching it. Yeah. And that stars the great French actress Patrice Dahl as there's a woman who is like 9.5 months pregnant on Christmas Eve, and her husband died, and she's lonely. It's a very sad setup. And then Patrice Dahl, who's kind of this Dario Argento style witch, shows up and spends an hour and a half trying to cut the baby out of the woman's stomach. And it's like a cat and mouse thing, but it is intense. So you never know where I mean, any genre, you know, there could be a great Western, a great musical. So yeah, I have special faith in horror.
Well, this is why I love when you stop by, because you never know when a conversation will turn to metaphysics.
Yeah, right.
You know? So, it's the fabulous, the amazing Mike McBeardo, McPadden. I cannot recommend heavy metal movies more. Oh, look at that cover. Wow. This book is just cool to have. Come on.
It is. Andrei Buzikov is the artist.
Amazing.
Born in Russia, lived in Brooklyn, now lives in California.
Wow. And all this cool stuff on the pages as well. It's just a feast for the eyeballs.